poverty line. Although Thailand has already have a healthcare system, it does not cover everything. Especially more severe cases, it's also funded by tax from citizens. By providing financial aid, people will not only be able to afford medical help, their mental health will also be better since they no longer under financial pressure and stress. Multiple studies from around the world demonstrate basic income benefits mental and physical health, lowering depression, illnesses, while increasing to health treatments and healthier housing situations. Furthermore, since basic income is provided for life, it gives a floor for social and economical growth. Unlike means tested that claim to be welfare programs, but produce anxiety will have unreasonably high application standards. This is also true for Taiwan. For all of the recipients in Taiwan, only roughly 5% of the people are actually eligible for welfare benefits. The Global Report for Research and Infectious Diseases of Poverty, put together by the European Commission and World Health Organization and TDR, offers a clear rationale of the relationship. Poverty creates conditions that favor the spread of infectious diseases and prevents affected population from obtaining adequate access to prevention and care. Ultimately, these diseases disproportionately affect people living in poor and marginalized communities, driving a vicious cycle of poverty and disease poverty. Is instrumental in cultivating conditions that allow diseases to spread. According to UBI Taiwan, from 2000 to 2010, average life expectancy in the most deprived townships was 73 years, a full 8 years less than the richest areas, while proving poverty has a devastating impact. Without the help of UBI, poverty would create conditions for disease spread, trapping families in a cycle of poverty and diseases, which could have been proven from the decimate economical growth. And we also saw this in the COVID pandemic. And moving on to our second contention, it's entrepreneurship. UBI creates economic freedom and entrepreneurship while solving poverty. First, a MOCAT Center report illustrates how UBI facilitates a thriving social mission ecosystem and enhanced risk-taking abilities afforded by the removal of mental stress that restricts productivity and innovation. By de-risking social entrepreneurship, for those who cannot risk the potential downside, UBI can effectively address poverty. With more and more people starting businesses, this creates more jobs for the poor and others. By giving more job opportunities, this creates self-employed workers to improve their job, and income stability is key for them for a pathway out of poverty. The Canada Child Benefit did a study, and a basic income families contributed over $46 billion a year to our economy, creating more than 550,000 jobs while lifting over 250,000 families out of poverty. For every $1 given to Canadian families, $2 is generated in economic activity. By guaranteeing some income periodically and being unconditional, it liberates the recipients to pursue work and find meaningful, which in turn result in better economic outcomes. And also, income from permanent fund divided lifts about 15,000 to 25,000 Alaskans above the poverty line each year. Furthermore, estimates reveal that the PFD has reduced Alaska's poverty rates by 2.3% points on average over the past 5 years, and about 25% more people would have fallen below the poverty line.
Honorable Judge and fellow debaters, this is Negative Side speaking. This side strongly opposes Taiwan to enact unconditional basic income. According to the policy proposed by UBI Taiwan, it will require about 3.24 trillion per year in Taiwan to be implemented, accounting for approximately 90% of GDP. The national budget of Taiwan in 2022 is only 2.3 trillion. How should the government get them from? Moreover, according to the finance experiment, UBI allows people to seek jobs they are really into regardless of the payment, and this will lead to a lack of labor in jobs such as construction workers or other blue-collar workers, because no one is willing to do it, which will cause a significant shortage of manpower in a certain field and hinder the development of the country, which in turn worsen people's lives, meaning that UBI will fail to achieve its original goal. And also, to implement UBI, the government will have to increase the tax rate against corporations so that they might get the money. In a capitalist society, for companies to maintain their profits, companies will take back the money to their employees. So implementing UBI will cause the payments for labor to decline so that the benefit of the company won't be harmed. If the affirmative is suggesting that is fine for the companies to earn less, then it is saying that it's okay for a country to ignore its economic development, which will also in turn worsen people's lives. Furthermore, because of the law of supply, if everyone gets more money from the government, and here there's no study showing that the supply will increase, then it will cause inflation because people have more money to spend, but the supply remains the same. And when inflation takes place, the amount of money UBI provided will have to increase. And then there will be inflation again. It is a vicious cycle, which will harm the country's economic and worsen people's lives. So it is contradictory to UBI's initial intention. Besides, to take the money from the rich to the poor is apparently unfair. There's no reason for them to pay extra tax for UBI just to give it to the poor. This policy is suggesting that it's okay to trample people's efforts just to let folks that are not striving hard get money for free, which might even lead to a low incentive to work, stopping the rich to invest the funds in Taiwan because eventually it will be given others for no reason. Lastly, there's no experiment conducted in Taiwan, and all experiments we can refer to are only among thousands of people. Worse still, the reference are even from countries that don't share similar circumstances with Taiwan. It is unfeasible for Taiwan to enact its risky policy when we don't have a single feasible reference. In conclusion, unconditional basic income not only is a policy that is really, really hard to carry out, but it will also backfire and worsen the living condition of our citizens. So this side strongly oppose Taiwan to enact such an enormous policy that doesn't have any feasible reference. Thank you, Judge. Thank you.
Also, class right, they have to go up.
You guys said that we should not tax people just to provide financial assistance for the poor because they don't work hard. How can you assume that? Okay, so we should not tax people just to provide financial assistance and for the poor because they don't work hard. Well, more like because they don't work hard, so we should. How can you assume that the poor won't work hard?
Because if they are given the money with no reason, and there's no reason for them to work hard to get money from the company.
So you're saying that they won't work hard because they're getting money already. But wouldn't they use the money to get themselves out of poverty, get a job where they can have a more stable income? Oh, it's okay. You can ask the question.
How can government get that much budget for UBI? Can you name what kind of tax is possible to be reformed?
Oh, okay. So you're saying that there might not be money enough for UBI, right? There's a lot of money spent on crimes and stuff, such as social welfare and other stuff. But if we use that money onto UBI, then that can be more personalized, and that can fit more for the people who are poor and they need the support, because not all people can use the social welfares, and rather if you give them money, then they can maybe have their own problems that the welfare and the social services that the government provides, they don't like have that coverage for them. So that can be like better for these people.
So you may decrease the social welfare to
Yeah.
implement UBI.
Yeah. How much time is it?
35 seconds.
Do you have another question?
Are you aware that UBI decreased people's wealth thanks to work?
UBI doesn't necessarily mean that the workers will work less, because it's unconditional. So there's no reason for the workers to work less. If they get their salary, and if they move up for the salary, like they get a better job, they work harder for a better pay, but UBI still gives them money. So it's not because they get the money so they won't work hard. It's like a gift or like a bonus onto their own salary.
Well,
That's time.
Okay.
Alright, does the pro want to use any of their prep time?
Can I take
Sure, starting out.
Okay, we're done.
Sure. 30 seconds each.
about time? So judges opponents are ready. Okay. So my time starts now. Attacking their contention on lazy workers due to UBI benefits. This is a natural assumption because unlike the welfare programs that often have unreasonable application standards, people wouldn't have to meet any conditions to receive UBI, meaning there would be no reward or benefits for staying unemployed. And UBI would simply give people more choices, including encouraging them to start their own businesses and opening up towards more job opportunities. And there will always be more people who are willing to postpone instant gratification and continue to work hard after receiving the cash from UBI. And one off-cited UBI study conducted on the Alaska Permanent Fund found no real impact on full-time employment rates, and actually showed that part-time employment increased by 17%. And jobs tend to be pretty central to our sense of identity and human dignity, so free money won't be enough to prompt most people to give up their careers. And further economic security caused by UBI will actually embolden the people to start businesses, taking risks and explore innovation, which will help the economy thrive. Okay, now secondly, addressing what they said about inflation, competition between companies and technological advances will keep pushing down prices, so demand will not decrease. And enacting UBI will actually help families face rising costs now. The main inflation crisis we are currently experiencing is in sectors where automation has not been applied due to government regulation or inability, and primarily housing, education, and healthcare. And therefore the real issue isn't UBI, it is whether technology and automation will be allowed to reduce prices in different sectors. And we also have evidence that the existing basic income-like programs have not caused inflation and harmed the economy. Like we said, the Canada Child Benefit actually found out that the basic income for families contribute over $46 billion a year to our economy. Okay, so now addressing what they said about being in debt and being very expensive. Their contention is false because not investing in UBI will actually put the government into more debt. A report by the Chief Public Health Officer in Canada estimates that investing $1 in UBI for children saves up to $9 in the future government spending due to decreased crime, health issues, and other assistance. And the government already pays so much money dealing with childhood poverty, $1.4 trillion spent on crime, and trillions of more money spent on other effects of childhood poverty. And this is not even counting the financial issues caused by adult poverty. And it is obviously cheaper to pay money to prevent poverty than to pay for the damages caused by poverty. And UBI will solve this because we will spend much less money compared to other programs while being so much more productive. And further, a full UBI would grow the economy by 12%, according to the UBI model, which means that the comparatively little money spent on UBI will actually be reinvested into the economy. Okay, thank you.
other judges and fellow debaters, this is a negative side speaking. So the opponent keeps saying that the UBI will increase people's willing to work, or even they will be more willing to start a business. However, there's no evidence showing that this will happen, because as it's logical, because if we give the poor more money, then they won't have that much incentive to work so that they can make a living. They don't have any evidence to prove that they don't have any evidence to prove that the poor will want to increase their income so that they can get a better life. Some poor might want just to make a better living and then keep on their life. So giving UBI might cause people's willingness to work decrease. And also, they mentioned that the experiments didn't show any of these kind of indication. However, most of the experiments right now are only short term, which means that the people will still have to work in the future. Which means that they still have a concern of their career development. Which means that, so they still have to work. And if they're saying that, they are referring to Alaska, but Alaska has a different circumstances with Taiwan. And they also mentioned that the money can come from the cut down of social welfare system. But we need 3.24 trillion for this policy. How should the government get the fund that is more than our budget simply by cutting down the welfare system? The money is, they are idealizing the budget. Or if they are talking about raising the tax rate, but raising the tax rates will actually backfire because, for example, increase business tax, then the companies, their competitiveness will decrease because their profits is decreasing. If they are talking about business tax, then the price for the products will increase because the stores need to pay more tax. And if they are talking about commodity tax, then the product's price will also increase, which is inflation. And then they deny that the inflation will exist because the automation will cause companies to decrease the price so that they can compete to other companies. However, there's no evidence showing this, and also there's basic market law. If the demand increase as the opponent just said, people receiving UBI makes their life better. How are they going to improve their lives? It's buying more basic living necessities, which means that the demand will increase, but the supply remains the same. That is how inflation works. And they also say that the experiments didn't show any inflation, but the experiments are often only announced thousands of people. It's unfeasible to refer to experiments that is only among thousands of people and say that it won't cause inflation, because the inflation is actually caused by a large amount of financial transaction. So, in conclusion, while the idea of enacting an unconditional basic income in Taiwan may seem attractive on the surface, but it is important to consider the practicalities and potential consequences of such a policy. The implementation of such a program will require a significant amount of funding, which could strain the country's economy. Without careful consideration of the potential downsides, implementing an unconditional basic income could do more harm than good. Thank you, Josh. Thank you all.
Do you have any questions?
So do you have any evidence showing that the implementing UBI will cause the economy to grow?
Because by implementing UBI, the government will actually save more money that was actually going to be used for example, solving crimes and other health issues that will happen because of the lack of UBI. So when we save these kind of money, the money can be reinvested into the economy, which will boost it.
But the current budget is 2.3 trillion, but implementing UBI will need 3 trillion or more. So,
wait, do you have evidence that UBI, the financial need for financial UBI will be less than welfare programs? Because your status quo is welfare programs. So like the status quo is welfare programs, but then it will actually also cost money to finance these programs. So do you have any evidence that showing that UBI will actually cost more than these programs that already exist?
We don't need evidence for that. The current budget is 2.3 trillion, and that is for constructions, that's for other uses. So the welfare system is only for a small proportion within that 12.3 trillion. So it's clear that the welfare system will not be as much as UBI.
But it's important for us to implement UBI because the welfare programs are not working in the status quo. Because people are not even, it's really hard for them to be eligible for applying for welfare programs. So it is really hard for them to actually apply. So it's not working in the status quo. That's why we need UBI.
I agree that in the welfare system is not in some aspects it's not working well. However, we don't think that we should use UBI to solve this problem because it will backfire. It will cause inflation. It will cause the competitiveness of corporations to decrease.
But it will actually cause competition increase, which will actually decrease inflation. So people will actually want to buy the products because if companies keep on hiring their prices, then no one wants to buy the products and their business will fail. That's why there will not be inflation.
But that is the law of supply because, as I just said, the demand will increase, then the price will increase. It's not about people wanting to buy products. It's just about.
But at
how
the same
inflation
time,
works.
if the supply, the prices increase, the people will also have higher purchasing power. That means it will be balanced out because they will have higher purchasing power. So naturally, even if the prices do increase, they will still be able to afford it.
If the price increase, the profits will only go. Most of the profits will only go into the corporations, and also will only go into corporations. Their profits won't result in the increase of their salary. So as you just said, if the price increase, then the people will get more money. If the the price of the products increase.
People do more money.
So you can refresh your arguments.
And that is time. Alright,
Take 30 seconds prep.
starting out.
Summary is 3 minutes, right?
So you have 2 10 prep remaining.
Okay. So my time starts now. Okay, are we going for the argument of health? Okay, so our argument really matters because right now in the status quo, there are only a little bit, like about 5 in Taiwan, in Taipei, only 5% of the people are eligible for welfare benefits. That's a really low percentage. And as we can see right now, there are lots of people in poverty who need our help. However, we can clearly see that these welfare and social welfare are not helping because these people, it's not helping these people get out of poverty. Our argument matters because we should focus on these people who are in poverty to get them a more stable job where they can get their own income, where they can actually sustain their own life. Social welfare is wasting a lot of money on those who don't really need them, and it helps lift lots of people out of poverty, which should be our #1 priority because these people they can help work for the economy and which can lead to better economic growth. And now they keep talking about how using UBI will be like low probability and will lead to high inflation. However, that is not true. Taiwan, the government system is set up so that we can contain as little debt as possible. Taiwan basically pays all of the debt because it's very conservative. It's unlikely that the government will pay more money or tax harder to solve the problem of inflation. Taiwan has extremely high saving rates and extremely low tax rates and is spending much less on social welfare compared to similar countries. There are lots of saving and room for UBI. Putting UBI in Taiwan would make an average country based on spendings while solving many of the people's problems. And also, it's not true because firstly, inflation is usually caused by generating more new money and causing cash to lose value, which UBI does not do. We're only redistributing already existing money in the economy for better and more productive purposes. As according to the government, already pays so much money, like based on 1.4 trillion on crime, 2.7 trillion on healthcare and other welfare programs, and that's not counting other things. To get their money back, especially in the middle and rich working class, will work harder to increase the growth of the company in the country. They say that the people will lose incentive to work, but however, that is really low probability. They don't really give statistics to show that. They didn't, and in their rebuttal argument, they didn't really talk about anything to our condition of health. They clearly dropped it. And okay, so yeah, that's about it. Thank you.
Alright, prep time,
2 minutes and 30 seconds.
starting. Okay, that's 2:30.
Honorable judges and fellow debaters, this is the negative side speaking. The opponent claims that only 5% of the poor people are being helped, and the current social welfare system is only wasting money wasting money on people that don't need it. However, isn't UBI wasting more money on the ones that don't need it? And also, they also mentioned that the budget can be from cutting down social welfare system or solving crime. However, are they suggesting that with UBI we no longer need some health care or health care, and the current budget of Taiwan is 2.3 trillion, which is significantly lower than the budget we need for UBI, which is 3 trillion or more. So it is clear that by cutting down some of the budget won't get the government that much help. The opponents also denied that inflation will happen, and they said that the government can use debate states to control it. However, it's not that easy because of the law of supply. The demand for product will increase, but the supply will not increase. And that's how inflation that's how inflation works. They kept saying that the government or the corporations can solve, but they did not prove it, provide an evidence. And also,
Alright, that is time.
Oh, do you have this down? Okay.
Pretty sure we're supposed to sit.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure the reason why is back in the States, some teams started getting into a fist fight over a grand crossfire that got so heated. Okay.
Okay. So you guys talks about like you wanna ask first?
So I will wait that the reason why we do not reply to the health improvement is that the benefits is based on the fact that the UBI is based on if UBI will work, which we deny. UBI will not work, as we just mentioned.
Can you talk about why UBI will not work? Because how can you be 100% sure that UBI won't work?
It's easy because the budget you just mentioned, by cutting down welfare system, by decreasing the crime rate, will solve it. However, the current yearly Taiwanese budget is 2.3 trillion, and we need 3 trillion for UBI. We need 3 more trillion for this policy.
How can we be sure that UBI will need 3 trillion?
It's math.
Yeah, like we can change the number according to the money that we have. It's not like if we need that, then we're doing that. It's not like.
But the money you will need for UBI is certain. It's certain.
We can redirect the money that's already existing for welfare programs because they're not working status quo clearly.
Yeah.
So we can redirect that money into UBI. So that will.
We can redirect that if you are replacing that. But it's wasting 2.3 trillion. Wasting 2.3 trillion. There might only be billions for welfare system. But there might be only hundreds of billions for welfare system.
How can we be sure that only hundreds of billions are being spent on the welfare system?
So I was saying that
because clearly these money spent on welfare system is not working because there's still lots of people in poverty and they need our help.
So I was saying that the 2.3 trillion is totally used on welfare system, and even if that is true, then it's still not 3 trillion. Where does the money come from?
Well, I mentioned in our speech just now that Taiwan has a lot of savings because Taiwan they don't really like they pay all of their debt and they won't really want inflation to happen, so they don't tax higher and they also they don't print more cash and they don't raise taxes. We're just putting the money on to better usage.
So you're saying that we can use the savings to implement UBI?
No, we mean that we are just redirecting the already existing money into better uses.
Yeah.
Instead of
Already
putting money
existing.
into inflation.
What part of the already existing?
Like we have a lot of other branches that are needed, like for example welfare programs, you can take that it is not working clearly, so you can redirect the money that we have.
Yeah, we agree with that, but that's still not enough. And if you are talking about using the savings to implement it, then it's unfeasible because we cannot keep using our savings to implement the policy.
But however, if we don't do this, then damages in the future will actually be more severe, and we will not be able to pay for damages in the future that will be related to poverty. So even if we actually invest this money in UBI, there will actually be a like the money will come back, and then there will actually be it'll be successful
And that's,
because okay.
Alrighty, time for the pro. Time.
So fine for this year. Yeah. I'm sorry. Okay, so my time starts now. Our best argument was that UBI will help improve people's health, which will result in higher standard of living, and thus pull many people out of poverty, since we'll be providing them the financial aid for medical assistance. And we have a higher probability, and we went on this because they said that there will be lazy workers inflation. However, the probability of that is really low because we have evidence showing that the overall incentive is not lowered. Also, they did not really give any evidence to show that these things will happen. However, in our previous speeches, we have shown that this won't happen because in our world, giving these people money will really help them out of poverty and a better living standard. And giving them money will also help them have a more personalized way of solving their own problems, which social welfare might not be able to cover. And also, even if you don't buy this contention, we also went on magnitude because the impact of entrepreneurship, which is solving poverty, is much bigger than the impact of inflation. A decrease in poverty rates will not only mean a higher standard of living for more people, but also decrease crime rates, health issues, and solve many other problems that would influence our society as a whole. And from 2001 to 2010, average life expectancy in the most deprived townships was 23 years, a full 8 years less than in richest areas. Proving poverty will have a devastating impact. And on the other hand, opposition impact has no weight, because if you prefer the argument, you are prioritizing economy over helping the most vulnerable. And we should direct our resources at those who are the most needy. And by implementing UBI, we can actually solve this by helping them with their medical issues. And further, we solve their contention because with our entrepreneurship argument, there will be more businesses open. And there will be more people push up the value of change productivity, allowing more that can afford a better education and a better job. And where there's more value, there will be more supply and demand in the economy, balancing out and preventing inflation. And we see that Japan has way more debt than Taiwan and printed a lot of money, yet they don't even have inflation. So how is their argument about debt even accurate? And answering
That
your...
is tough.
Okay. Thank you.
Honorable judges and fellow debaters, this is a negative side speaking. The opponents say that we are saying that the economy is more important than people's human rights. However, the development of economy and people's living quality is actually related. If the country's economy is bad, then the people's life will also be bad. And they also say that the current social welfare system is only helping 5% of the people, and is also helping people that don't need it. However, it's actually contradictory to their own policy because the UBI is helping people that don't need it. So that point doesn't stand. And they also say that the inflation won't happen because the corporations will control it. The corporations will control it. But there's no evidence showing that the inflation is caused. There's no evidence showing that in every kind of product, the producer of that product will use automation to lower its price. And lastly, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, the budget. They keep saying that we can get the budget from cutting down social welfare system by cutting down the crime rates so that the government won't have to spend that much money on that kind of thing. But as I kept mentioning, as I kept emphasizing, the current yearly budget of Taiwan is 2.3 trillion, and if we want to implement UBI, we need 3 trillion. And so even if there's 2.3 trillion is totally be used into social welfare system, be used into decreasing the crime rates, then the budget will still not be enough. So the opponent is idealizing the policy that we can just get the money from somewhere and then that's the benefit of it. So that is the reason why we deny their points on the improving healthcare.
That's tough.
Thank you.
just need to announce the final result.
Yeah, what 2-1, 3-0 for which team?
Okay. Okay, so the result of this round, the winner is accounting, and it's 3-0
For the
Content.
for the prom.
Okay.
Give some comments.
Pro or con?
Sorry, for prom.
Pro.
Yes,
Yes,
you all
yes.
FPS. Anyone want to start? I guess I can. So I thought this was a good debate, and I think it was actually closer than the 3-0 nature of the decision suggests, at least for me, mostly because I think the con by the end of the debate is jettisoned most of what I think are the bad arguments. Like, I don't think this inflation point is particularly well developed, true, nor impacted, nor do I think this work disincentives argument is true, well developed, or impacted. But by the end of the debate, you've slimmed down to this, like, I think fairly reasonable budget point that suggests that UBI would just explode the government budget. It would overwhelm whatever the existing budgetary resources of the government are. And early on in the debate, I think this is a fairly well-developed argument. It suggests that the recourse to this budget explosion would have to be something very detrimental to the economy, be it a tax increase that suppresses growth, be it welfare trade-off that maybe hurts the worst off, maybe via the accumulation of debt, which might be bad for the economy. And I just don't think the pro has a particularly good answer to this by the end of the debate. There's like this kind of loose assertion that maybe entrepreneurship in the long run bolsters the economy, and I just don't see how that solves a short-term hit to the budget where you just like immediately tack on 3 trillion NTD to the budget and just like absolutely throws that out of alignment. Like, maybe in the long run you can recover some of those costs, but I don't really know why that would solve in the short term. This poverty point I think is like okay, but again, it's very long term. It requires you to solve poverty over the course of many years before you can see those economic gains. And finally, there's just like this kind of assertion that, well, you know, it wouldn't necessarily cost this much money. Maybe you could just take it away from welfare programs. But I think the con kind of responds to that by suggesting that's like a very small part of the existing government budget. After all, if it only affects 5% of people, like how could it be? And so even if you totally decimated the welfare program and siphoned all that money off to UBI, I just don't know how it could supplement. The main problem for you is, what's the impact to the budget exploding? Early on in the debate, you do kind of have an answer, right? You suggest that the one obvious solution would be increase the corporate tax rate, and that would discourage investment in the Taiwanese economy, depress growth, and that would have really bad spill-down effects for the rest of the economy. Maybe it would cause poverty, maybe it would worsen Taiwan's international standing. By the end of the debate, you're just like, look what would happen if we blew up our current yearly budget, and you kind of just stop there. So what I need you to do is go a little bit further, explain what the impact is, and why it outweighs what the pro says. So why is this budget getting thrown out of whack? Why is that so bad? Why is that much worse than anything that the pro claims? And I think the best way to do that is just to get rid of all the other arguments by the end. Like, it's fine if you have this work disincentives argument or this like inflation argument early on, but I think you're pretty clearly losing that after the summary. Whereas the one thing the pro has not really responded to is your budget point. And I would spend all 2 minutes just being like, look, I don't need to touch a thing, they say. If I win the budget point, it means they can't fund UBI, so they get none of their benefits. And it also means they have huge external harms to the economy, depressing growth, just trading off with welfare, doing something bad, right? And that is way more important than any of the supposed benefits they could realize. And you just spend 2 minutes on the final focus on that, I think it's a win for the con. Which correspondingly is the best pro advice that I have is, you gotta get a better answer to this just like it costs a lot of money thing. And early on in the debate, you have some answers. The one that I like the most is, well, debt financing is actually good, right? We'll just concede that the Taiwanese government just incurs a ton of debt, but that's good because you read a piece of evidence that says that debt spending grows the economy. And that was never extended again, but then like that flips everything that they said, right? They said debt spending bad for the economy, but you're the only team reading evidence to substantiate that debt spending is good for the economy. If that had been in the ending parts of the debate, I think that would have made this round much closer for you all. I have 2 other small comments, and then I'll let the other judges talk because I've been talking for a while. One is, I think it's curious that you accuse the pro of having no evidence when I'm not sure if you've cited more than a single piece of evidence this entire debate. So I'd be careful about accusing them of that without relying on your own evidence. Specifically for this budget point, you just assert that it's math, but I don't know what the Taiwanese budget is. I have no idea how much a UBI would cost. I would like some evidence to prove both of those points for me. And for the pro, I think the argument that I ultimately end up voting on is just like this health argument, but I think it's objectively not very true because you have two explanations for how you solve health. One I think is true, but not the one you explain, and the other one is bad. The true one is just people in poverty are subject to way more health conditions, like chronic poverty exacerbates disease spread, stress makes people more likely to get sick, and they are, like, for example, can't take time off of work to go to the doctor or whatnot, and so they like delay seeking treatment. And that's not really the one that you go for. You go for the argument that UBI means that people can pay for healthcare. How could this possibly be true? You have asserted that the national health insurance of Taiwan is really good, but doesn't cover these really expensive treatments. And then your proposal is to give them a tiny UBI, which in no world could cover those expensive treatments that is not covered by national health insurance. So you've proposed a problem that there's no way you could solve. Because you're like, the problem is that poor people can't pay for really expensive health treatments. Let me give them like 30,000 NT. How do you solve that problem? So I would go for the much more straightforward one, which is just like chronic poverty is really bad for health. We solve chronic poverty. Because you're getting to like, because you're trying to get to this impact via such a roundabout way. You're even trying to solve poverty in a roundabout way. You're like, well, actually the reason why people are poor is because they're unhealthy. So if we give them money to pay for health treatments, which they can't afford, that in the long term means that they're less poor because they don't suffer from chronic health conditions. Backwards. You gotta say you solve poverty first. That leads to the good health problems because you're way more likely to solve that by just giving them cash than you are by giving them 30,000 NT to pay for some cancer treatment that isn't covered by NIH and solving poverty in the long run.
So we focus on the poverty instead of saying that the UBI can finance severe disease.
Yeah, so just say like, look, poverty has a host of problems, right? Like it's well known that people who are impoverished suffer from like extreme stress. They are unable to seek preventative care. They usually delay seeking treatment for fear of losing their job or missing work. They're less likely to have access to the types of treatments that we want, although that's mostly in the US that doesn't have health insurance, Taiwan does. And just like in general, people who are poor are exposed to worse living environments, and that makes disease spread more likely, the accumulation of disease more likely. You solve that because you give them money. The way you're explaining it now is we give them some arbitrary amount of money and somehow they can pay for cancer treatments or whatever that solves. Like, I don't really get how you solve that one. I only get how you solve poverty, right? And that poverty has all of these other impacts that are important.
So we need to solve poverty first and then solve the health.
Yeah, because you're saying that you solve poverty as as a secondary effect of solving health, but I just have no idea. A, that seems weaker, right? Like UBI's best point is that you just give people money so they're not poor anymore. And B, it seems much more unlikely because, again, your argument is you solve people paying for expensive medical treatments, but I don't know how UBI could do that. Because if it's so expensive, then how in the world is UBI going to fix that for a poor person? Like, the UBI is, like, all that money is immediately going to go to, like, food and shelter, and they're not going to have any left over for payments, and even if they did, it definitely would not be enough to cover a really expensive medical treatment. Okay, I'll stop talking for now and let the other judges talk. And if you have other questions, let me know.
Maybe first.
Okay. Okay, I'll just make this question also because we have 20 minutes. So for me, I think the key point is I agree with the speaker for that. You know that it's about the facility, like if this system can work in Taiwan. And I think in this round that you always mentioned about that 2.3 trillion budget is less than what a UBI required. And of course, I agree with Mr. Abdel that you may be better to know that how do you calculate that. And I think for the prompting, you only react in the last round that to for this data, you only respond says that first, if you think the price is too high, the budget we need is too much, then we can adjust it to be lower. Okay, so this is the first very basic response. But of course, then we need to get into a deeper argument. If you adjust the system, if you give people less UBI, can it reach benefit you just mentioned? And how? And is that still like best income? Is that still like a match definition of this topic? And this is also what the speaker for challenge. But let's come to the second response that they give. It's they say, all right, if you think cut social welfare is not enough, we can still increasing the debt. And very fast mention about how Taiwan's debt system that can still like afford more liability of things. And I think I heard last challenge from the consigned to this evidence. And the third response they give is also that every $1 we invest, we can create $2 to $9 benefit in the future, according to Canada and Alaska's. I don't know, maybe some survey or some data there. And I think for the coincide that I think I didn't heard any challenges to these two evidence, which I think it could work. It could be quite easy if you try to challenge it, like what's their systems, what kind of way they use in these two countries. Can this data, can this result really match Taiwan's situation? If these two evidence exist in this debate, then that means no matter how much money we lack right now, that as long as you are willing to put this maybe 3 trillion back, we can create 6 trillion in the future. Okay, so for me, the logic here, I think your logic is totally right, but it lacks some challenge to their evidence. And I think that evidence maybe it's not that strong, but since they cite the source and they also clearly talk about the numbers, so for my judgment, I will consider that as an excess evidence. Yeah, so this is the key point. Otherwise, I think both sides should be quite close to each other.
Okay, so I'm Jack. Thanks for judges and thanks for all of your speakers. I mean, very good job. As a high school student, that topic is pretty complicated and you all prepared very well. So thank you for all. I just give very quick 3 comments because of time's up. The first one is more like the skill, like technical skill. Debate is like a public speaking. So you try to convince your audience. You don't need to convince each other because you're pro and pro, so it's never convince different sides to change their mindset. So you try to convince your audience and your audience is now is judges. So do have the eye contact and try to make more eye contact with us. That will give you a very big plus. And second, for the com side, I think you try to emphasize the budget, the government financing, or the inflation. That's a good point, but it's also very complicated. So you need to provide more evidence. For example, inflation is not just based on the demand and supply. It's more complicated, like it's the supplier side inflation or demand side inflation. It's also about the logistic, global logistic management, something like that. And yeah, I mean more eye contact and more, one more thing. I know you all prepare very well and you all prepare a lot of statistic data, evidence, studies, Canadian or Alaska studies or researches. That's good because in the debate, you need to show how much knowledge you already prepared. But I want to emphasize in a public speaking scenario, emotion is also a very big power. Try to give some individual stories or try to give us your personal stories. Somehow, the audience, if in the future you are the public speaker, you don't really speak to the professional people, you speak to normal people, the public. They cannot really absorb so many numbers, evidence, or studies, or whatever knowledge is. They want to listen the real human being nature. So show more emotion and show more kind of, personal story. Take a look of the Obama speech. Like he didn't just speak in data number or economic growth. He also speak the very small, tiny people's stories. So that would be a very good plus as well. So that's a quick comment for all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you want all my comments, you can scan this QR code here. It will have my flow on them, as well as everything that I've typed out, because I can't write with a pen anymore. So if you want them, it's here in the sheet. Feel free to come closer, it's kind of small. Should take you to a Google Sheet that's viewable. All of the comments are on the right-hand side.
Thanks.
Cool. Good luck around two.
Oh, we'll have to vote?
Yes.
Okay.